Good evening and welcome to the Porsche 935 USA Cup, presented by Sim Racing Online. We are at Road Atlanta today. Air temperature around 30 degrees, a very toasty 40 degrees track temperature. We're not expecting any rain at all. We are set for 60 minutes of racing. This is round 5 of a 6-round championship. As I said, we're at Road Atlanta, a place that runs the Petit Le Mans. We are using the Porsche 935 K3. And we've had 4 rounds so far. It's been a very interesting championship. Very tricky car for some to get a handle on. But if we just look at the schedule so far. So we've only got 2 rounds to go. The championship can't be decided tonight. It has to go down to the wire. So it's Road Atlanta today. And then it will be Sebring International Raceway on the 30th of March. So in 2 weeks' time. So as I said, we're using the Porsche 935. Which is a car built between 1976 and 1981. Quite a powerful car. 2-door coupe. 3 to 3.3 litre flat 6, turbocharged flat 6 4-speed. It's been very difficult for some of the drivers to get a handle on. Bumping over the curbs is sometimes not the most optimal way of driving this car. But we are at Road Atlanta. Now, Road Atlanta does currently hold the IMSA Championship and the Tramzan Championship. Apparently, it has run in the past some NASCAR, some Can-Am, but it's been around since the 1970s when they first introduced this track. It was a replacement for a Can-Am series that was cancelled, and then it's just been used ever since, from 1970 onwards. So it's quite an old track with a lot of history. I don't think the layout was changed in a great deal, but here we are at Road Atlanta today. It should be quite fun to see how the drivers handle all the elevation changes, let's just say. So as I said, the championship cannot be decided tonight. We do have Nick Westy out in front on 122 points. Ed Jones in second would have to not finish. But it's a very, very slim chance. So as long as Ed Jones actually takes part in the race, he will score points. Which mean that Nick Westy cannot win the championship tonight. He's only 7 points behind, with Barrett Ericsson 1 point behind his teammate, actually, in second. And then fourth is Robin Taylor, a further 8 points behind, with Bjorn Hagman in fifth. Consistency has been the key for this championship, because not every driver has competed in every single round. So with the 4 events so far, only the top 3. Actually, there's only 4 drivers in the championship that competed in all 4 rounds. No one has scored a double win yet, so we've had 4 rounds and 4 winners. The only driver that's been the majority of the time on the podium is Robin Taylor. He's got 1 win and 2 third places. So consistency is key. There are no mandatory pit stops in this race. So it's going to be 60 minutes relatively flat out. There is a boost calculation as well, so fuel management is going to be key. And keeping the tyres on the car as well is probably a good idea. So the drivers are just out for practice at the moment. So why don't we head down at trackside and see how they're getting on. So I've been seeing a couple of lap times popping up on the board. So Nick Westy is currently heading up the times. Championship leader at the moment. It does look a bit slippy out there. Maybe the track temperature has got something to do with that. So it looks like Nick Westy is taking the power slide approach for this track. Drifting this car around. I can't imagine that the tyres are going to last very long. Looks like he's running a qualifying setup. Closed all the radiators in the hope that the engine doesn't blow by the end of the lap. Don't know if that's very sportsmanlike to have your engine smoking out there. But with sim racing, you don't have to pay for the engine, so I suppose it's not too bad. So it's currently looking at a 116.8. And we also have Tony Talviti back in the championship. He hasn't been able to turn up for quite a number of rounds due to work, but he's back in the championship, running the number 70 today. Very quick driver. So far, Tony he's taken part in 2 rounds, and then in the 2 rounds he's been in, he was here for rounds 2 and 3. That's 1 win and 1 second place, so never been off the podium. Let's just put it that way. And then we have Thomas Johansson, who's actually the creator of this Porsche 935 mod, and he's joined us this season. You can see he's doing a purple sector for that last sector there. So up the hill and over the brow. Thomas Johansson so far has taken part in 2 rounds, and I believe has got two fifth places. So consistency. Another one to watch out for is Bjorn Hagman, a late comer to the championship. Bjorn Hagman normally has his, we don't know if it's brother, uncle, father of Lars Hagman. Bjorn Hagman has taken part in 3 rounds this championship. Unfortunately, he has thrown away some good results late on in the race, but he's currently sitting in 5th place in the championship with a 1 win, a 3rd place, and I believe it's a 4th place as well. So one to watch out for. Robin Taylor currently 4th in the championship, running the very fetching number 73 livery. He's actually the teammate of Nick Westy with Black Cat Motorsports, so whether or not team orders are going to come into play, but as I say, Robin Taylor's been very consistent in the 3 rounds that he's been present. That's 1 win and 2 third places. So another one to watch out for, to see if he remains on the podium. Then we have Baron Eriksson, who's had a bit of an unlucky time recently. This car has got away from him a few times. Baron Eriksson has remained 3rd in the championship, and his highest finish is a 2nd place. And then from then on, he has finished 6th place in rounds 2, 3, 4. So another consistent driver, and he's not far off 2nd place. He's actually battling 2nd place with his teammate Ed Jones for Bad Voices Racing. And then we have Ken Jagger, who as well runs for Bad Voices Racing. Now Ken Jagger is currently in the pits. Ken Jagger is 6th in the championship. Unfortunately hasn't finished above 6th place. No, he has finished 5th place as the highest finish. So he's got some work to do. And then finally we have the very consistent Ed Jones, 2nd in the championship, in the number 60. Ed Jones is currently only 7 points behind the championship leader. But as I say, Ed Jones, with a good finish tonight, can keep himself in contention for the championship, and we would hope for Nick Westy having a a horrible last round. So as I say, the times are coming in. We're now still got a 1:16.8 to beat in practice. We are going to be rolling over to qualifying in about 4 minutes' time. So let's go on board with Tony. Hopefully he's completing this lap. Right, through the turn 1. Don't wash wide, otherwise you're heading straight to the tyres. Turn 2 and 3. Over the brow of the hill. We head downhill through the S's. Try to carry as much speed in and out of turn 5. Try not to run too wide. He does have traffic in front. Down this short straight. Up to the right angle turn of turn 6. And then turn 7. Down the short, well, longest back straight, which is technically turn 9. Braking hard for turns 10A and 10B. And through this final turn, near flat out. Turns 11 and 12. And there you have a lap around Road Atlanta. Let's possibly turn the engine sound down a little bit so it's not blasting your ears off. So I do propose that there are a couple of passing places on this track. The back straight is going to be key. So getting an exit onto this back straight as Bjorn is coming out of right now. So drafting down this straight is going to be very, very useful. But there are some big stopping points. This chicane is one of them, so there are some outbraking manoeuvres into this turn, and perhaps drivers will be able to go side by side through this final turn as Bjorn's coming into the pits. Take a look at Robin Taylor coming through turn 1. So the rear ends of these cars do look a bit lively. As I said, you only need to put one rear wheel on the grass and it feeds you out towards the barrier. So these Porsches can be very, very tow happy. He's decided to abort that lap. Have a look at Barrett Ericsson just coming across the top of the hill. As Barrett Ericsson is putting his lap as well. Okay, so I believe we are going to be rolling over to qualifying. So qualifying should be about 15 minutes. So we saw the practice time of 16.8, whether or not that is representative of how fast they're going to be going in qualifying. But we will see. So it's a qualifying session of 10 minutes, in fact, not 15 minutes. My apologies. So if we look at down at the track, as the cars are coming out of the pits, so 10 minutes to get a lap time in. How much do you want to push it to get a good lap time? It may be key, as I believe there's only maybe 2 real passing places on Road Atlanta. Unfortunately, I don't have my track map active, so it's going to be very difficult to watch who is where on the track. Maybe the track map will become active a bit later on. We have had another couple of drivers join us, so Sim Pitstop, I believe that's how it's pronounced, and Rob Milliken have joined us, so it's a total of 10 drivers tonight. So Nick Westy, I believe, is the first to set a lap. I believe it's private quali as well, so everyone is on their own. So into turn 1. To out of shape, keeping a very tight line, not running out towards the curb. The front is moving all over the place, coming into the downhill section, down through the S's. Slight jab at the brakes. He's leaving a very wide berth to these curbs, drifting through this final turn, turn 5, onto what is one of the short straights. Does look like he's running his closed radiators again, so there's no one following in the smoke. And he's slightly wide onto the back straight, and probably in slight mistake, but as he's the first to put sector times in, he is purple in sector 1. Coming up towards the end of sector 1, down the hill, braking hard into this last chicane of turns 10A and B. And the car's going to go light under the bridge. The front's going to wash quite wide. Down into turn 11, running a little bit wide. Whether that lap is going to be valid, that's a 16.9 for Nick Westy. We have Tony, who's bought in that lap. Whether or not he put in enough fuel or not, I'm not too sure. Thomas Johansson has just gone into second with a 1:19.2. In fact, Bjorn Hagman has again closing his radiator, going for top speed, and has just popped into second place. Ken Jagger has a bit further up the road, is in fourth at the moment. Personal best in sector 1. Keeps it on the circuit down the back straight, one of the back straights. In particular lockups into these final 2 turns of turns 6 and 7. It isn't actually private quality. I can see others on the track, so you'll be very careful with traffic, whether teammates will be giving each other a tow perhaps. So this is where sector 2 will end. Is Ken Jagger still green? He is still green. That's a personal best. He does have a little bit of catching up to do. 4 seconds behind the leader. Power down and under the bridge. U-turn 11 and 12. And that should be a 1:20.2. Barry Eriksson really having a bit of an off, so he's going to have to abort this lap. So I believe he's letting someone through, and then going to start again. He's running a closed radiator. So Rob Milliken, usually in the broadcast booth, but he's now behind the wheel. Number 54 tonight, 2 green sectors. That's a 1:22.6, so a little bit of time to find. He's letting through the car in front, who I believe is Sim Pitstop, sorry. He did say on the forum how non-German speakers should be able to pronounce his name, and I think I may have got it a bit better than I have. So this is, I believe, his first real lap, 'cause he's 16 seconds off, so his first lap must have been a bit of a mistake. So up the small back straight into the turn 6 and 7, and you need to get a good exit onto the straight. Run slightly wide. Hitting the red line a bit when he's changing gear. Braking hard down into the chicane. Oh, it nearly got away from him. Probably not the best exit from the chicane. Tries to get on the power, but not quite. Through the final turn. And that will be a 123.7, so a lot more to do for Philip. Baron Ericsson now on an outlap after he aborted his last one. So it's still Nick Westy at the top with a 16.9. Bjorn Hagman in second with a 17.7. Tony Talviti in third with a 1.1 seconds off the lead with a 1:18. I'm sure Tony can do a lot better. He's getting a tiny bit of a toe from Philip Pitchler, so I don't know if this is going to help. He's not doing a personal best in the first sector, so I wonder whether Philip is quite slow getting on the power coming out of that turn. I don't know if he actually meant to let Tony by. It does look like he wants the toe for his next lap. So this should be a flyer for Tony coming into the last turn 10 and 11. It does leave some black lines on the circuit. So a push lap now for Tony. He has to find 1 second from somewhere. Through over the line and up to turn 1 and 2. Be very careful with these blind crests. Being able to remember where the apex is when you come over the crest. That's an accident from Philip behind. Getting it all wrong. Down through the S's. Does look like you got to get the rhythm very spot on to there. 4-wheel drift. Down into turns 6 and 7. Now a good exit without hitting the curb and running wide. That's a good exit. Maybe could have gone a little bit wider. He's purple in the first sector, so the fastest car on the circuit so far. With only just over a minute to go, so Tony could put in a lap after this. He is purple in the second sector, so this looks like it's pole worthy. So he's currently third. But this should knock him up into pole position. There's a yellow in sector 1. He nearly lost it coming over the line. That is Tony feeling like that's all he can do. So Nick Westy on an outlap. So Tony is currently in pole position with a 16.2. Nick Westy has about 7/10 of a second to find. So only 36 seconds on the clock. This will be his final lap. So he's really banging down the gears and banging off the rev limiter. So it's lucky that we... no, this lap will be aborted. Bjorn Hagman is not putting any personal best in. So does it look like that Tony has grabbed pole? I believe he may have. Baron Ericsson coming through the final corner. Personal best in the first sector, but not quite on the pace in the second. He's 4.7 seconds off at the moment. 120.2. He improves his lap time, but not his position. Old Milliken, one of the last ones to finish their lap. Quite tight line coming into the chicane. But personal bests first and second sectors. How close is he going to get to pole time? He's currently 8th. Comes across the line. Stays 8th. That's a personal best, but he stays 8th. Unfortunately, Philip has had a little bit of an off, so that will be the end of his lap. So a lot of people going for the tactic of closing the radiator and hoping the engine hangs on for 3 laps. In this league, we do mandate that the cars have to do an outlap, qualifying lap, and an in lap. So you can't just exit on track. As we see Philip coming into the pits. So that was quite a rabid qualification session. Some very quick drivers out there. Whether or not race pace is going to match their qualification pace. We have 60 minutes of racing. We're just about to switch over to warm-up. So drivers are going to be allowed to have a 5-minute warm-up just to get their eye in. Whether or not people go out is another question. So, let's check the starting order. So, on pole position is Tony Talviti. And in second, Nick Westy, championship leader. Bjorn Hagman gets third. Thomas Johansson in fourth. Ken Jagger in fifth. Robin Taylor in 6th, Barrett Eriksson in 7th, Rob Milliken in 8th. And then the final 2 on the grid, I believe, are Philip Pichler and Ed Jones. So, what are your predictions? Are we going to have a double winner this round? Because we haven't so far. There's been 4 rounds and 4 separate winners. So Robin Taylor won round 1. Tony Talviti won on round 2. Nick Westy won on round 3. And Bjorn Hagman won on round 4. So we may crown the first double winner of this round. As I say, we've got 2 rounds to go. Today, Road Atlanta. In 2 weeks' time, it is Sebring. So how these cars manage the bumps will be anyone's guess. It may be a little harder to pass at Sebring, although you do have that big long back straight. We were expecting a couple of extra drivers tonight, but looks like they weren't able to make it, maybe due to time changes or other problems. Hopefully they can join us for the last round. But the championship is very, very tight. Now either Nick Westy can put it nearly out of reach and not have too much to do for the final round, or does he play it safe? He doesn't really need too many points, he just needs to be consistent. Or does he just go out for the win? We've seen that he's been very aggressive in previous rounds. Laguna Seca was a bogey track for some. Very difficult for some of the traffic, or getting through the traffic. A lot of people were making a lot of mistakes at Laguna Seca, so I wonder whether this track is going to prove very, very similar. It does have a lot of blind corners for drivers to negotiate, but we'll see what kind of passing maneuvers people can make out of tonight's course. I think you're going to have to think a little bit out of the box to get on terms with some of the other drivers. But will we see the championship nearly be put out of reach just for the final round? So other events that are coming up on Sim Racing Online, we've got a couple of championships on the go right now. Sim Racing Online does run R-Factor 2 championships. We are delving into Automobilista 2, Project Cars 2 and Assetto Corsa. And recently, we've started using Le Mans Ultimate as well. So the championship that does alternate with this one is the IndyCar IR18 2025 championship. So next week that will be the final round, I believe. So the final round of that will be at Indianapolis. So that should be fun to watch. So check out Sim Racing Online's YouTube channel for that. Also, the next championship to be broadcast, and I will be broadcasting the IMSA GTX Championship in Assetto Corsa, which starts on the 3rd of April. So that should be fun to watch. More classic cars at, I believe it's a mixture of fantasy tracks and old tracks. So very similar cars to what we're running tonight. Very old, very noisy. The American V8s. So it should be a very, very noisy time. So I've got to get my head around how to broadcast in Assetto Corsa, but I think I've got it sorted. Looking forward to that one. And then coming up back in R Factor 2, we have another championship starting on the 6th of April, which is the Enduracers P2 and GTE Asian Championship. So a mixture of going from the USA American tracks. We will be popping over to Asia to take on the 2025 championship of multi-class racing. So this is Sim Racing Online are starting with Le Mans Ultimate and are currently doing a GTE challenge. But by all means, go to simracingonline.co.uk and sign up. So, warm-up is over. Drivers have got their eye in. Hopefully we have no incidents. I believe it is a... Is it a standing start? It is a standing start. So, who's going to get the best getaway? We've switched session. And we are heading to the grid. Right. So, let's go with your pole man. Tony Talviti is on the line and raring to go. Let's hope for clean driving down to turn 1. Let's see whether Nick Westy plays it safe. Red lights are on. And off we go. Bit of a tardy start for Nick Westy. Didn't get the revs. Right. Tony Talviti is away. Bjorn Hangman is following in second. And Ken Jagger, unfortunately, has a bit of a... Oh! Just about missed everybody, apart from collecting someone at the back. Made an absolute blinding start. But unfortunately, a short spin turned him round. Nick Westy has recovered well. He's up to 3rd place. Unfortunately, Bjorn Hagman, I don't know whether that was a little nudge from Nick Westy that turned him around, or whether he just got on the loud pedal a bit too hard. So down to turns 6 and 7 for the first time. Tony Talviti leads. Nick Westy in second. So 60 minutes of racing. Two leaders are away. Back in the pack we have Thomas Johansson with Rob Milliken using that superior boost, perhaps getting past into 5th place. Whether or not he can hang on to that, he's got a train of cars behind him. So Bjorn Hagman, after that great start, is now down to 7th place with a bit of work to do. So he's got to get through this. The driver's in front, so I believe he does have a pace advantage. Through he goes into turn 1. Onto the brakes. His next target is Rob Milliken, who locks up and goes wide. But doesn't quite. I don't know what happened there, whether Rob Milliken caught him out with braking there. But it's going from bad to worse for Bjorn Hagman. He could have done with a good result. And Barrett Ericsson takes over 3rd place. But the 2 leaders are away. So we have Tony Talviti in 1st, Westy 2nd, Ericsson in 3rd, Robin Taylor and Johansson 4th and 5th. Field is spreading out a little. And then we have Ed Jones back in 7th place. He did start at the back of the grid. He's now up to 7th, capitalising on people's mistakes. Bjorn Hagman with all the work to do now, 23 seconds behind the leader. And Rob Milliken after his accident. Hopefully they've still got their rear wing attached, I believe. They have. And then Ken Jagger after his first lap accident is now bringing up the rear. So Tony Talviti is now pushing on to the fastest lap of the race, a 1:18. He is a little bit of a gap out of draft range. Nick Westy behind. So Nick Westy can still see Tony, so whether or not he's just pacing himself. He doesn't actually need to win tonight. He just needs to finish consistently ahead of Ed Jones and Barrett Ericsson. Barrett Ericsson is up on a podium place at the moment, but he's got Robin Taylor breathing down his neck. So back onto what is the back straight. So Ericsson is just out of draft range ahead of Robin Taylor. 0.8 of a second. Needs to be a bit closer than that to get any kind of advantage of draft. Down into the final chicane. He's better on the brakes. Tony Talviti does another fastest lap of the race. 1:17.4. Whether or not he is just making hay while the sun shines. And putting out a lead of 3.5 seconds. So who were the movers and shakers in this first few minutes of the race? I was going to say laps, but it's not a lap race. It's 60 minutes as Barrett Ericsson does do a bit of grass cutting there, which gives Robin the opportunity. Thought they were going to go side by side down into the S's, but not quite. So positions gained. Ericsson has been up 4, so he's the big winner. Unfortunately, Bjorn Hagman and Ken Jagger lost out the most, with losing 5 places from the start. So back up to the lead. Tony Talviti is all on his own. Whether or not he's going to pull out as much as possible. Well, he is the fastest car on the track at the moment. But side by side, Barrett Ericsson and Robin Taylor. Taylor goes right around the outside, whether or not he just used a little bit of boost just to get that extra oomph down the straight. Robin Taylor now up to 3rd place. Now this does well for the team championship. The team championship is quite close with Black Cat Motorsports, which consists of Taylor and Westy. They are out in the lead in the team championship at the moment with 113 points. Bad Voices Racing are currently in 2nd with 104 points. And they currently have 3 drivers in the race, which are Barrett Ericsson, Ed Jones and Ken Jagger. So it looks like Robin Taylor is putting out a gap on Barrett Ericsson. He has a lot more pace, it seems. So whether or not he can better his times. Now he's got some clear air. He's in the 121s, so maybe he can be a bit faster than that. And then we have further back. As we see Robin Taylor go round. I think that was getting on the loud pedal a bit too fast. I was looking over to the standings and nearly missed that. So through goes Philip Pitcher, and Robin Taylor, undone all his hard work, up to 3rd. And is now back down to 6th place. So this car is proving to be very, very difficult in the early stages. Maybe the tyre's not really up to temperature. But a lot of drivers are within 2 seconds of each other. Johansson back to 4th, capitalising on Taylor making that mistake. So Ericsson further up the road with a podium position in hand. Now, as I said before, Barrett has been very, very consistent. He does have a 2nd place to his name this season, so being on the podium again would be an advantage to maybe consolidate 3rd in the championship. He probably does have a chance of passing his teammate for 2nd in the championship. So, is there any team orders? Perhaps. Robin Taylor is now back up to speed. He's now chasing Philip Pichler for 5th, making up for lost time. Pichler goes quite wide onto the straight, but doesn't seem to lose an awful lot. Still gets a better exit onto the straight. Down the back straight. Can't really call it a straight, it's supposedly turn 9. Car does wash a little bit wide down into final chicane of 10A and 10B. Over the curbs. Pichler does go a bit wide coming out that 2nd exit, but still able to get on the power earlier than Taylor can. And now that Pichler may be holding up Taylor, Hagman in the orange car, the Jägermeister car behind, is going to try and seize the opportunity. So unfortunately, Hagman has had a couple of accidents in this race so far, which has put him back down to 7th place from where he started. So this 3-car battle could go until the end of the race. Remember, boys, you've still got 50 minutes of racing to go. So Bjorn Hagman with 2 opponents ahead. Does he wait for a mistake? Or does he push the issue? It does look like he's had a little bit of a bad exit coming onto the straight there. But Robin Taylor is in the draft of Pichler. Coming down the back straight. Not quite close enough to make a pass down into the chicane, but he seems like he's better on the brakes. Down into turn 10. And up the hill, over the brow. Looks like a slight bit of oversteer for Pichler coming over the hill. Down into the last turn, slightly wide of apex. Robin's able to keep it in. Slightly wide as well. Is Robin going to go for a chance up the inside? Not quite close enough. Pichler does get a bit squirrely on the brakes, braking hard. Down into turn 1. So I believe the next opportunity could be the short straight after the S's here. This is the closest battle on track at the moment. There is a yellow in sector 3. I'm not sure who that could be. Unfortunately, not having my track map, but we're concentrating on the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. Pichler out in front of it. Not sure whether he's actually holding these drivers up or whether they're putting in lap times of 1:20. I don't know whether the cars behind can go any faster than that. I think Bjorn Hagman is probably the fastest of the group. It doesn't actually look like Ken Jagger has a DNF, so that may have been the yellow. So after that great start, Ken Jagger is now DNF. That's our first DNF. So he will finish in 10th place. Over the brow of the hill one more time. Pichler gets the nose in a bit better, doesn't run wide, but Robin Taylor gets a better momentum, but he still doesn't have an overlap coming into turn 1. He's got to get a way better exit, or Pichler has got to make a little bit of a mistake. So we're going to go on board with what Bjorn Hagman sees. So he can see that Taylor's making a little mistake, dropping a wheel on the dirt. Again, dropping another wheel on the dirt. Hagman gets a better exit onto this short straight. So Taylor has got to have eyes in the back of his head. Not only has he got to defend from behind, he's got to attack as well. So again, onto the back straight for one more time. Whether or not Hagman uses that extra boost. He does look like he's getting closer and closer and closer, but not quite close enough to have an overlap into this final chicane. He's got to size up a bit his opponent and see where Taylor is weaker. Over the brow of the hill for another time. He does look like Philip Pitchler is now getting away a little now that Robin Taylor is probably driving in his mirrors. Well, that was a slight mistake from Pitchler. And slight mistake coming up turn 1 as well. That's all that Taylor needed to get past. Bjorn Hagman has got to be very careful. It looks like both drivers are off. So Pitchler followed Robin Taylor. I don't quite know if we will need to give that place back. He was ahead at the time. Just made a slight mistake. And took to the escape road. As Tony Talviti puts another fastest lap of the race in. He's 4 seconds ahead in the lead with a 1:16.6, fastest lap by about 0.8 of a second. So he's not hanging about. Quarter of the race has been completed. As we are watching this battle now for 5th and 6th. They seem to have now, after Pitchler's mistake behind, he's dropped back a little. So Robin Taylor was running in a podium position, but a slight mistake dropped him back over the line for another lap. So with 45 minutes to go, it is Talviti in first. Nick Westy is 2.5 seconds behind in second. And then we have Barrett Eriksson in third, a further 35 seconds behind. So the top two are in a class of their own, about 2 seconds quicker than the chasing pack. It's Barrett Eriksson just coming up the back straight as the others finish their lap. And we have Thomas Johansson now on his own in fourth. So it looks like it'll be a good point scoring finish for Thomas Johansson. And then back to the battle for 5th and 6th. It looks like this is going to rage for lap after lap after lap. Does Hagman want to push the issue? Maybe push Robin into a mistake rather than being outright faster than the car in front. Over the brow of the hill, he does lose a little bit of pace coming into this final sector. And I believe that is Thomas Johansson. They are catching Thomas Johansson for 4th. So 4th could be up for grabs by Taylor. So I imagine that Johansson can possibly see them both coming. You can see them in the background there. So Johansson is running in the 120s. And Robin Taylor and Bjorn Hagman are running in the 119. So it's just a matter of time until they both catch up. So I wonder whether Bjorn Hagman is using Taylor at the moment for draft. Maybe just settling behind. I don't know whether temperatures are going to become an issue if they're running line astern. It does look like they're quicker as a twosome, a duo, than they are on their own. So they are half a second faster than Johansson ahead. So the lead is now down to 1.5 seconds. So Westy is now getting a little bit of a wriggle on. Feels like his tyres are now up to temperature. He can push a little more. Still, Tony Talviti has dropped his lap times down into the 1:17. So this flurry of Flurries of 116s are now a thing of the past. But maybe Tony is just settling in a bit, so could he be our first double winner of the season? So 42 minutes to go. I don't believe there's going to be any pit stops. So it's just a matter of fuel efficiency and tyre wear. Back to this battle for 5th and 6th. Back straight for one more time. It does look like Johansson is keeping that gap quite stable. But Taylor does have the metaphorical carrot to chase. And if we look back at the battle for 8th and 9th with Ed Jones and Rob Milliken, I don't know whether Ed Jones is now just got past Rob Milliken. We did see Rob Milliken having a little bit of an accident over the top of the hill before. And he may have just been past, but this battle is the closest one on track at the moment. So Ed Jones in the 129s. 129s? I mean the 121s. Milliken taking quite a wide line into these S's turns, or whether or not he's suffering with a little bit of tyre wear due to that spin. But it looks like Ed Jones has now got the bit between his teeth. Rob Milliken can put in lap times of the 119, so he's definitely got the pace. But now Bjorn Hagman back in 6th place. He's still under the rear wing of Robin Taylor. It doesn't actually look like he's aiming for a pass. No, you don't want to hit the grass. That will slow down your braking capacity. So a slight mistake from Bjorn again. He doesn't lose any places, but unfortunately he's now dropped behind Robin Taylor. So Robin Taylor can now concentrate on catching Johansson for 4th. So a little bit of a recovery drive for Taylor. So down through the S's they come. Down the hill. Trying to stay off the curbs as much as possible. Slightly wide for Taylor, and Taylor goes round. So don't rejoin the track just there. Oh, that was a close one. That was a close one. I wanted to get on track as soon as possible. I was quite worried he was going to join into traffic there, but another mistake from Taylor. He's got some catching up to do. He's making it hard for himself. So a lot of mistakes tonight from these drivers. It's proving very difficult for grip out there. So Johansson has been given a little bit of a reprieve for 4th. Both drivers that were challenging for 4th have now dropped off the circuit. So we've missed the pass for the lead. Looks like Nick Westy has got through for 1st. So Tani Talviti last time out did a 119. So has he pushed a bit too soon? Has he run out of tyres, or at least maybe overheated his tyres? Looks like there may have been a little bit of a mistake. Now they're getting into lap traffic as well, which could prove difficult. So I believe that is Rob Milliken they are lapping. So Tony does catch Rob at the inopportune moment of the S's. He won't be able to pass until the short straight, I'd imagine. Rob Milliken does look like he's struggling for grip as well. Tony wants to get past as soon as possible. Onto the short straight. Dropped about 1 second. Catching Rob in the wrong place. And if we drop back to Pichler in 7th, it does look like Pichler, sorry, is now caught Robin Taylor after his spin. So I can't imagine that Taylor's tyres feel very good after the spin through the S's. So Pitchler is getting very close into the final turn, but not quite close enough. He does seem to run a lot of curb coming through the final turn as well. So this is now the battle for 6th and 7th. Pitchler has been in the 120s. Robin Taylor can do a 119. But they are quite well matched. So whether or not Pitchler has got anything for Taylor, unfortunately Taylor has made far too many mistakes. He is running wide of those curves, and Pitchler feels more comfortable banging over them. So whether or not he can get close coming into the back straight, that seems to be the best opportunity to pass down into chicane. It sounds like a bit of a clumsy gear shift there, but hopefully that doesn't affect the engine too much. So with 36 minutes to go, it's Westy in first, Talviti in second, only 0.8 behind. So he's regrouping now that he's got a little bit of clear air. Ericsson is quite far behind in third, with Johansson fourth, and Hagman with his recovery drive in fifth. So Talviti wants this win back, wants this position back. I did hear in one of the post-race interviews that Tony did, he's not really concerned about championships. He unfortunately can only compete in some of these rounds because of work schedules, but he just wants to win, which I appreciate. Just wants to win. So out onto the short straight, no particular hassle. He's got 2 cars ahead. So Robin Taylor and Pitchler are in mid-battle here. Robin Taylor, again, a mistake. He's having an awful round. He's either entering that turn too fast or maybe getting the braking all wrong. At least that... Let's open the door for the leaders to come through. So Westy is possibly going to catch Pitchler on the front straight and be able to pass into turn 1. Pitchler probably didn't need to move aside there, but he's gracious to the leaders. Didn't lose an awful lot of time. So Pitchler is now a lap down in 6th place. Closest battle on track is the first 2, so Tony coming down through the S's, giving chase to Westy in the number 0. And get within 0.9 of a second. Be at least within half a second on the main straight to have any chance of being able to draft into the chicane, I believe. So the field is now spread out with 34 minutes to go. Road Atlanta is proving quite difficult for grip. I don't know whether there was not enough rubber down for some of the drivers after qualification, but it is proving a bit difficult. I think maybe a lot of drivers are being a bit too aggressive on the loud pedal. Over the line to start another lap. Perhaps Westy now pushing on. Back in the 118s, so the pace is dropping off with nearly half distance. Still look like they're pushing with the amount of grip they have left. I wonder whether Tony will be settling for second, or he's just possibly taking a little bit of a breather, cooling his tyres down a little. So Barrett Ericsson has been solidly in third, kind of capitalising on others' mistakes, and Bjorn Hagman has driven up to the back. He literally had an accident at the start which dropped him near enough to the rear of the field. And he's now chasing Barrett Ericsson for third place. So he's within 1.5 seconds. So you can see his quarry ahead. But Hagman has made a couple of mistakes which have dropped him back. I think he started on at least the second row of the grid. And that spin early on has cost him, which is a shame, but this battle is going to carry us onto the short straight up here. So fastest lap time for Bjorn Hagman is a 1:18.1, and Barrett Ericsson has only managed a 19.8, so better exit onto the straight. So onto the straight we go. Not too much between them. Only about 0.5 of a second. That looks a bit more than that, but that's 0.5 of a second. It looks like we're going to need to be a bit closer than that to even get in the draft, but it looks like Ericsson did lock a tyre coming into the chicane, which has meant that he's vulnerable coming up over the line. Hagman giving chase in fourth place. He feels a podium is up for grabs. Closest battle on the track at the moment. So it's Barrett Ericsson in third and Bjorn Hagman in second. As I said before, Hagman has got a win last time out in round 4. He did get a third place in round 1. Barrett Ericsson, his highest finish so far this season has been a second place, which was in round 1, and has finished in 6th place for the last 3 rounds. So this would be a good finish for Ericsson, even if he does lose this place to Hagman. Slightly better exit for Hagman onto the main straight, or back straight rather. Don't know whether Ericsson is maybe running a little less wing or a bit more boost to save himself from a charging Jägermeister Porsche behind. He seems to pull out a bit in this final sector. Seems to be a bit stronger. But still. So back to the lead. It's Westy in first. Not far behind is Talviti. It's only 1 second, so he's keeping the battle alive. They have just lapped Thomas Johansson in 5th behind, so the top 2 have lapped up to 5th place. Scintillating pace. They are now back in the 117s. So maybe traffic is coming into play a little, slowing down the lap times, but still a scintillating pace of a 117. As we do see Tony pushing a bit too hard coming out of the S's. As we drop back to Taylor and Pichler. Battle resumed. 6th and 7th place. So after Taylor's mistake, he's now caught back up to Pichler. And he's on the hunt. Now Taylor has got 1 win and 2 third places this season. He wasn't here for round 4, so dropped some points. But he's 4th in the championship at the moment. Slight mistake from Pichler, which gives Taylor the easiest opportunity to pass. Thank you very much, he says. Now, has Pichler got anything to fight back down into the chicane? He is very, very close, but not quite close enough. Slight look up from Taylor. Nothing too major. I'm sure his tyres are not feeling too great at all. So can now Taylor pull away and catch his next quarry, which is Thomas Johansson. It does look like we did miss the pass for third. Hagman is now up to third. That must have been on that last lap. We missed it. So Westy first by about 3 seconds. The gap at the front is fluctuating. It was down to a second, has now opened up. I think after Tony's slight wide moment, maybe he had another untidy lap. The last lap time 1:19. So maybe giving his tyres a little bit of a breather, and maybe a last lap or a last quarter of the race dash until the end. Sometimes I get this lull in the race midway through, and then it suddenly kicks off late on. So you can see Westy ahead. He's now lapping. I believe that is Ericsson for fourth rather. So Ericsson moving to the inside, and Westy goes through. Ericsson does look like he was struggling for grip to get the nose in through those left and right S's. And Tony has also passed him on this back straight. So this gap for the lead is ebbing and flowing. Goes between 3 seconds to 1 second. So who's going to make the first mistake? Lap times in the 1:17 range. Who has been efficient on their fuel as well? Because fuel efficiency has come into play. These cars are turbocharged. As Tony comes through the final chicane. Taylor challenging Pichler again for 6th and 7th place. This battle seems to be raging on. It did look like Taylor must have made a mistake. It was 1:23 that last lap, and Pichler must have got through again. So hell of a battle between these two. It's whoever makes the least amount of mistakes, it seems. Onto the front straight, not quite close enough to put one up the inside, but maybe Taylor should be dancing around his mirrors, maybe to trying to put off Pichler into these braking zones. It does look like Taylor can rotate the car a little bit better. Pichler, it looks a bit slower to get the car to turn. Though he does pull out a little bit of a gap coming through the S's. It's slow onto the back straight. Chance for Taylor to come up the inside. He's very quick down this back straight. Runs on the grass a little bit. It's very close to the rear of Pichler coming into that section. I'm sure he held his breath waiting for the bang, hoping that he didn't rear end Pichler. So coming down the back straight, a little bit out of draft range. 0.5 of a second is not quite close enough. He's better on the brakes into the chicane. Not quite close enough. Has to get better traction into these final 2 turns. 11 and 12. And he does seem like he can take a tighter line. And for the into turn 1, they go. 24 minutes to go of the race. So Robin Taylor over the top of the hill, down. They're going to go through the S's. This is the closest battle on track, so Taylor does seem to get a better run through the S's. As I say, it does look like Pichler is struggling to get the car turned through that left and right sequence. But he does get a good exit onto the back straight, which saves him. There, he needs to get the power down as good as possible onto his back straight, otherwise he's going to be vulnerable. The leaders are now within 2 seconds of each other. We have 23 minutes to go. Taylor is shaping up for a pass. He is right under the rear wing. And out brakes Pitchler coming down into the chicane. Does he keep it tight enough? He does. Pitchler has a better exit out the final chicane. Slight overlap, not quite. Pitchler thinks better of it. It'll be very difficult going side by side through that final turn. But well thought out. He maybe thought about taking the chance of nipping up the inside, but thought better of it. So Taylor now back up to 6th place, with Pitchler following close behind. So if we nip back up to the lead, it is Westy still lighting up the tyres in first place. Talviti not far behind, but at 1.9 seconds behind in 2nd place. There is a huge gap to 3rd place, which is now Bjorn Hagman. What could have been for Bjorn Hagman? He may have been able to hang with the top 2 if he didn't have that spin early on. He's now out on his own. He's now pulled a 20-second gap on Barrett Eriksson, who's now in 4th place. Still a good finish for Eriksson. One of his top finishes this season, apart from the first round where he finished in 2nd. Johansson has been pretty much out on his own for this entire run. He does have... he's not far away from Eriksson, but I don't think he's maybe got the pace to catch up. He is in the 119s and Eriksson is in the 122s at the moment, so 4th place isn't out of scope. And we drop back to Pitchler, who is now back up to 6th. It does look... Robin Taylor again must have dropped it. Last lap time of 1:26, so a mistake again for Taylor. Has now dropped him back to 7th place. Probably just pushing a little bit too hard. And Pitchler again has come back through to 6th place. Robin Taylor could have been up in 3rd place, but a lot of mistakes has meant that he's dropped down quite a bit. 8 seconds behind. Slow and steady is Ed Jones for Bad Voices Racing. And then we have Rob Milliken. An accident early on has put him out the back. In 9th place, the last of the finishers. Ken Jagger is our only non-finisher at the moment. You can see Ed Jones just ahead of him, but similar in pace. As we go back to the leaders, it's Westy first, 20 minutes to go. Talviti chasing on in 2nd. They are about to lap 3rd place. So could this give Tony Talviti the opportunity to gain some time? Just depends where Westy actually meets Hagman on the track. Talviti is all over the curbs. Doesn't want to run toe wide into turn 1. Over the blind crest for turn 2. Slightly late on the brakes, locking tyres. Makes the apex side down through the S's. Down towards turn 5. I don't know whether that was dirt kicked up by Westy or Bjorn Hagman. But how does Westy get through the traffic? It's going to catch him on the back straight. This is going to work out beautifully. So Hagman pulls all the way over to the right hand side. Unfortunately, I think this means that Talviti is not going to be able to pass until later on in the lap. Although Hagman does look like he's lifting. And he does lap the 1st and 2nd place through. He's got much to fight for. He's got a very secure 3rd place at the moment, so he doesn't really want to chance that at all. The gap is now 1.5 seconds after all that, with 18 minutes to go on the clock. So Westy has now made his way through the traffic. The top two are in a league of their own, literally in a class of their own. It's still Talviti, the fastest lap of the race at 1:16.6, but that was early on in the race. I don't think they'll be in the 1:16s now. So still bumping over the curbs. Still using all of the track. So they are pushing on. So this battle for first and second is not over. So onto the back straight for another lap. Still able to pump in the 117s and 118s. They do have a little bit of clear air before they meet another lapped car. They've lapped the entire field, first and second. So is it going to be one final push for Tony? He is pushing on. That time of 1:17.6. So is it going to have to be a mistake from Westy to give Tony the opportunity to come past? This is the closest battle on track at the moment for first and second. So far Tony has taken part in 2 rounds so far. Every time he's finished, it's been on the podium. A first and a second for round 2 and 3 respectively. Rest of that looks like Hagman has just gone off just behind. So a slight mistake from Hagman. No particular drama though, because he's quite safe for third place. So as I say, Tony first and second are his finishes so far. Westy has been present for all 4 rounds this season. And he has finished all of them. It was very unfortunate in round 1. I believe he blew his engine at Road America, but he still came home collecting points for 7th place. Round 2 he was 2nd. Round 3 he was able to take the win. And round 4, unlucky again, coming home with an 8th place. So good points for Westy for the championship. This may put it out of reach for Ed Jones. I believe it's going from bad to worse for Robin Taylor, who's now dropped down to 8th place, because now Ed Jones has stepped up to 7th place. So another mistake from Robin Taylor. He's having a hell of a round as Ed Jones locks up into the chicane. So Ed Jones, who started from the back, I believe, is now up to 7th place. So we go back up to the lead too. Just 1 second between them. I think they're coming up to lap Rob Milliken. Just under 15 minutes to go. Putting another lap on Rob. As he moves wide. Moves too wide. But no particular drama. Keeps it on the track. So now down for the final push. The final push of these last 14 minutes of the race. Who's going to make the least mistakes? Who's going to have the most amount of rubber left on their wheels? For this last section of the race, does Talviti have anything in reserve? Taking a slightly shallower entry the final turn. He does have to be within about half a second at least. Is he saving a little bit of boost for this final 10 minutes? A very short lap time of a 1:17. Again, taking quite shallow entry to the chicane. I don't know if that's the quickest way through. can see now Westy has pulled out a little bit of a gap. You can see him just on the horizon there, so he's still got someone to chase, but is he now too far ahead? He was able to close the gap before. But can he close the gap again? We got back to Johansson. Johansson is now within 1.7 seconds of Ericsson. So not far away from 4th place. You can now see Ericsson just ahead. So is 4th place on the cards for Johansson? A very steady drive currently. They are very, very similar in pace, so it's not a foregone conclusion. It does look like Johansson is being a bit more aggressive with these apexes than Ericsson is. Now within 1.8 seconds. So has Johansson left something to the final part of this race? Perhaps. As we just unfortunately cut to Tony, who I believe was just having lapped, put another lap on Ed Jones, I believe. Oh, man, a little bit too wide. The gap is now up to about 4 seconds. He's got... Maybe this is too much of a tall order now with only 11 minutes to go. He has been making these slight mistakes which have dropped him back. And he did unfortunately lose the lead. Maybe again that was due to a slight error. But it's just all these slight errors will drop you back, and you've given yourself far too much to do in the remaining laps. So as we're counting down, we are just over 10 minutes to go. It is Westy in first, still pushing on through the chicane and under the bridge. Talviti in second. Only 2.5 seconds behind, but still looks like he's ragging this Porsche. Lap times have dropped down to the 119s and 120s. So maybe these cars are just running out of grip. Hagman in third, a lap down in third, but a very lonely third place. He was up with the front runners at the beginning of the race, but unfortunately due to a little spin, it did look very close between the top three in that first run through the S's. So I don't know if there was any contact, or whether there was perhaps some netcode issues. We don't usually see any netcode issues. Back in 4th place. A solid drive from Barrett Ericsson. This will do well for his 3rd in the championship. He's perhaps going to pull ahead of his teammate. This probably puts Barrett Ericsson in 2nd place in the championship. And then Johansson chasing on in 5th place. So as it stands, Nick Westy will have 40 points for a win. Talviti will have 36 points for 2nd. And 3rd place at the moment is Hagman. That's good points for Hagman. That's 33 points. Ericsson would earn 30 points for 4th place currently. But that is maybe soon to change, as Johansson is chasing. Maybe he's dropped off the back a little. He was closer than that, but it does look like Johansson's maybe settling for 5th. Still a good finish for Johansson. He's only taken part in 2 rounds so far. So a 5th place would be 28 points. As we see Ericsson just touching the grass. Pichler back in 6th. will have 26 points. Jones is possibly going to lose second in the championship. In the 7th place, that'd be 24 points for Jones. And then the final point score. It does look like Taylor has given up. And is our second DNF. So Milliken is now up to 8th with 22 points. With Taylor scoring 20 and 18. Our first retirement was Ken Jagger. So, are the points going to stay as is? Or are there going to be any changes? It does look like the lead has now been consolidated with 7 minutes to go. Tony Talviti is 5 seconds down the road. Has he settled for second? Or is this a cooling the tyres, ready for a run in the final 5 minutes of this race? Who knows? 3rd place for Hagman. He is 1 lap down on the leaders in 3rd. Barry Eriksson very lonely now. I think Johansson has probably settled for 5th. Didn't quite have enough pace to catch up. As we go on board, we're still pushing. Those rears are starting to give way. Pichler has been up and down the order, but is now in 6th place with not many people around to challenge. He did have some good battles with Taylor early on, but unfortunately Taylor has retired. I wonder whether it was either an accident that put him out of the race, or he was having such a hard time keeping the tyres on the car. He was making quite a few mistakes this round, so Road Atlanta proving quite difficult. Ed Jones back in 7th place. Normally refer to Ed Jones as the tyre whisperer. He normally goes for the long strategy. You can see Rob Milliken just coming over the hill. He's not too far away. It's only 3 point something seconds. It's actually the closest 2 cars on the track. So we see dark lines being left by Ed Jones ahead. Milliken matching him for dark lines as well. There can't be much rubber left on these tyres for these drivers. So 5 minutes to go. The top 2 are still putting in 1:17, so they are still pushing on. But it does look like Talviti has now dropped 6 seconds behind. I don't know whether he can catch 6 seconds in just under 5 minutes time. I think that is too much of a tall order. Maybe Westy was keeping a little bit in reserve, because he's still down in the low 1:17s. If we drop back to Ed Jones, you can see just in the background as we come onto the back straight, you'll see Milliken just appear there. I think it's probably out of reach for Milliken. He is back in 8th place. An accident early on dropped him back as well. I believe it was when Hagman was coming through the field. Had like synchronized accidents coming through the S's. I believe the gap's getting bigger between Ed Jones and Milliken, so that looks like it's all done. As Westy comes through the S's for another lap. Coming to lap Pichler. The 2nd time, I believe. So he's still not hanging around. He's got a big enough gap to Talviti behind that he doesn't need to push this much. He can just stroke it home, as they say. back straight with 3 minutes to go. Nick Westy was behind at the start. He didn't get away very well. Whether or not he has a very tall first gear on this car. But he was able to work his way back up to third. And with others making a bit of a meal of the first few laps, he was able to come through to second and then pass Talviti for first. The lead is now at 9 seconds, so Tony has really turned down the boost and just wants a finish this time. I remember that Tony, in one of the rounds, he didn't quite judge fuel correctly and had to pit for a splash and dash at the end. And in fact, even after his splash and dash, he had to wait to be lapped because he didn't have enough fuel to finish the race, so he waited for the leader to come through. So 1 minute, just under 2 minutes to go. Now either Ed Jones has made a mistake, or Rob Milliken is having a final push to the end. Now within 2 seconds, but it does seem a lot to catch in this final couple of minutes of the race. I think it's a little bit of a tall order. It does seem to take quite a tight line into the chicane. It doesn't use all of the track. We'll keep an eye on that gap. It's for 7th and 8th. So, coming through the final minute of the race, I believe this is coming through turns 6 and 7. I think there'll be one more lap after this. You can see Talviti, that is Pichler in the background, that's not Talviti. Talviti really has dropped off for 11 seconds now. I don't know whether it's a fuel thing this time or whether he's just settling for second. Westy doesn't have a lot of grip. Now he could slow and finish the race, I believe, but he's probably going to go for another lap. Yes. His engine is now smoking. Do we have a final sting in the tail? Has he been pushing way too hard? The Porsche is now overheating. Track temperature is 40 degrees. It's still quite stable. 27 degrees is quite hot for air temperature. Has he been running a closed radiator for this race, and these push laps at the end have maybe taken their toll. He's only got one straight and a chicane left. So down the back straight for the final time. We see some dust kicked up in the background. I'm not sure who that was. I didn't see any yellow flags. So through the chicane for the final time. And under the bridge. Pushing down into the final turn. And across the line to win round 5 at Road Atlanta. Our first double winner for the Porsche 935 Cup. Tony Talviti comes across the line and grabs second place. Is pleased with that. Bjorn Hagman coming home in what could have been much, much more, but third place is still good. Coming down the hill. Third place. And slightly wide, but no hassles. No hassles at all. So, Wow, what a race! What a race! What a race. So, the top two had so much pace. So much pace that they were able to pull out a lead. So let's check the final results. What are we left with? What are we left with after that? So our session results. It was Nick Westy first, Tony Talviti second, Hagman in third, Johansson comes home in fourth, Barrett Eriksson solid fifth place, a DNF but still in fifth place. Sixth place is Philip Pichler. Ed Jones solid seventh place. Milliken coming home in eighth, and our non-finishes are Taylor in ninth and Jagger in 10th. Now, if we look forward to the remaining rounds, we've got one more round to go. One more round to go. Now, it looks in the championship, Nick Westy is still in the lead of the championship, but Ericsson has taken over second in the championship with 144. He is just ahead of his teammate in third, Ed Jones, with 139. Now, not far behind, Bjorn Hagman has only taken part in 4 rounds this season and has been on the podium 3 times. Now, what might have been for this round with 136 points in 4th. Not far behind in 5th is Robin Taylor with 126. And unfortunately, Tony, with his work schedule, has now dropped down to 6th place. But he's been on the podium every single time he's competed. 3 rounds, 2 second places, and 1 first. So, who's going to be our triple winner this season? We've got one more round to go. One more round to go. And it is the bumps of Sebring. The bumps of Sebring. How are these Porsches going to deal with the bumps of Sebring? We're hoping for 10 or more drivers in 2 weeks' time. 30th of March. So will this provide a different set of skills that these drivers will have to hang on to the cars through the bumps? A very flat track. Looks like they were dealing with a lot of tyre wear issues in this final 5th round. And I believe that we shall see the championship decided for the final round. We'll title up the points for the team. Black Cat Motorsports has probably pulled out a little bit of a lead into the final round, beating Bad Voices Motorsport, or Bad Voices Racing rather, into the 6th round. But thank you for joining us for this 5th round of the Porsche 935 Cup, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time in Sebring. Join us then.